How's it going, everyone? Welcome to the show ABCD. We are so happy to have you. This is a show where we are the American Born Chatty Desis. This is a podcast within a live stream within our lives as two American Born Desis. Think of this as a podduckin, if you will.
Yeah.
This is for everyone out there who, like us, is navigating your cultural identities, plural, and you just want to chat it out.
That's beautiful. Hey, Omar, do you want to introduce?
No, I think we've done it enough.
I'd
But
cast the
before we
idea.
get into the podcast, I would like to introduce to you all the co-host of this week's episode. He's a man who needs no introduction and needs no medical help because he just grabs leaves from the forest, chews them, and slaps them right in his face. It's Sandeep Paree!
Oh, baby. Thank you so much. Woo, yeah. Clap, clap, clap. Hands together. Oh, and I'm going to introduce this week's clearly rusty at being host this week.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. I think I had, 3 in a row? Those were the good old days. Remember those days, you guys, because now we're in Omar's reign. Ladies and gentlemen, the only AI hallucination that I want to live with forever, Omar Najam. Woo! Longer clapping, more clapping. Here we go. Okay, on tap for today, you guys.
Yeah, what do we got?
We got a jam-packed show. We've got... Of course, our news segment, What's Got Us Confused. Then we do our interview segment with Not a Doctor.
Ooh,
right?
okay.
Yeah, so definitely Not a Doctor. We got Voodoo Val, very excited about that. Then we followed up with Auntie versus Auntie Watch 2024. Man, do we have some updates on Auntie versus Auntie Watch. Then we played the ABCD game. And this time it's Care or Crush.
Care
it's
or
gonna involve
crush?
Us finding objects around our house. Voting on whether you actually care about the object or whether you would just destroy it and don't
Crush
actually
it.
care about it. We gotta find out. All right, and then we ended up with Desi of the Week. But first, before we get into all that,
Okay.
we gotta shout out our sponsor.
Okay.
You know that, yeah. And our sponsor is DesiQuest.
Oh,
That's right.
hello.
It's the Dungeons and Dragons 5e campaign that stars moi and Omar and as Rekha Shankar, Leslie Bamani, and just a collection of incredible guests. It's all set in a South Asian mythological inspired world from the brilliant mind of our showrunner extraordinary and DM, that bronze girl Buller. All the episodes are out right now. Go over to the patreon.com/DesiQuest and you can watch the whole thing ad-free, as well as every episode of our after show podcast, which is super insightful and fun and hosted by two incredibly handsome gentlemen. And then also
handsome.
beyond. And how about an awesome shout out for our guest here? We have streams with our character artist Voodoo Val.
Oh my God.
Where she does live art streams as she builds out the Wanderer's Guide and the books that we're making and stuff like that for the show. It's really cool. So again, that's at patreon.com/DesiQuest, DesiQuest.
And I'd like to mention another sponsor that we have for this show.
Okay.
You folks. That's right, the folks who help us out on Patreon.
What?
You all make this show happen for $5 a month. That is half a coffee at Starbucks. You get exclusive content, extra rounds of our games that we play, and also full interviews. That's right, the full interviews with so many of our great friends and incredible people. We've also got multiple tiers for contribution with a handful of subscriber benefits, including your name listed in the credits of this show, which we will shout out in a specific style at the end. Support a couple of Desis in the creative arts and help us keep the ABCD lights on. Again, it's patreon.com/EffinFunny.
All right. Let's get into our first segment of the pod. What do you think?
I think let's do it. Let's talk about what's got us confused.
Right, we do all of our own stunts, and by stunt sound effects. Here we go. Story number 1.
Okay.
You guys, Apple. Let's talk about this Apple commercial, okay? Tech giant Apple issued an apology following a widespread backlash over a new commercial released for its latest iPad Pro titled Crush. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but it's pretty wild. It features a myriad of objects getting smashed in a large hydraulic press set to Sonny and Cher's All I Need Is You. The casualties include musical instruments, cameras, paints, and books, and the press then lifts back up to reveal Apple's latest product.
Yes.
So yes, you guys, that ad touched a nerve amongst a lot of people in the creative community, including Hugh Grant and Justine Bateman and more. Maybe because the analogy hit a little too close to home when where artificial intelligence is concerned. Yeah, and then Apple marketing vice president Tor Myron said in a statement, "Our goal is to always celebrate the myriad of ways users express themselves and bring their ideas to life through iPad. We missed the mark with this video, and we're sorry." They're no longer televising the ad anymore. Any plans they had for a televised run has been scrapped. I don't know. How are you feeling about this thing?
Let me tell you, first of all, that's not how iPads are made. I think that's a little misleading to begin with.
Wait, that's not how they make iPads?
Do you know how many arcade machines it would cost to produce a daily amount of iPads?
Wait, they don't just smash baby grand pianos?
To crush them down a little bit. Okay, I used to work for Apple, all right? So, and in retail, don't get too excited. It wasn't me and Johnny Ives.
Okay.
But like, there's a lot of stuff I really like about Apple, not necessarily the production means of things, but I really like the fact that Apple has, this is a very like revolutionary thing for a tech company. They have a store that you can go to physically and ask questions. Like, it's, in one way, I suppose it's honest, but it's such a like huge step back from like the stuff that like the only things I really like about Apple, where I'm just like, it's the human element. And then they were just like, smash it all together. It's all just a smoothie that we can just like cram into this thing.
A delicious smoothie.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest with you. I get why it has a really visceral like reaction. I don't think I would have thought. I think if I'm being totally honest with myself, I don't even think I would have thought twice about it. And I don't know what that says about me. Probably not good things. I've probably been like, huh, that's intense. But I don't know that I would have really, in hearing I get it. Yeah, and hearing the ire, I'm like, oh yeah, but maybe I'm already tone deaf. Yeah, or maybe I'm already not tone deaf. What's the word? I'm like already like, just giving up or something. It just feels like
consigned.
We're so boned. These tools, they're there and they're not going away. And
you know what? Actually, I've heard that a lot recently. Do you mind if I push back on that?
By all means.
Because the thing, I've been thinking about this in preparation for this episode, and I have a thought which
hit me,
which is like, but technology is the thing that's temporary, right? Like art and culture are permanent. The Mona Lisa was made once and then exists for generations upon generations. I was told by Apple that my iPad 2 would be able to produce music. It can't anymore. And that's not that old of a product. So
iPads only last a year and a half before you have to get the new one, before it's deprecated and you have to get they have to smush more things into it.
It's just the kind of thing where it's, but that guitar will be good for 100 years. Like that piano will be good for like
wouldn't the
a
argument
long
be,
time.
Wouldn't the argument be, well, the thing you produce with the music that you produce with it, the digital art that you create with it, the thing that, whatever it is that you, the frustrations you have with GarageBand not working, like those things will last forever.
Oh, sure. I do think that the frustration, okay, in all fairness, if art's from struggle, then yes, I think that this company really does have a leg up on inspiring artists around the world. But yeah, it's just a thing where I'm just like, I do think that in general, technology marketing companies, because I'm from Silicon Valley. Like, I've got, my dad works in AI. I don't know if I mentioned this, but I'm from the Bay Area. My youngest sibling also worked in like autonomous vehicles when those were like kicking off. And so I'm not here to be like a Luddite. I think there's a lot of amazing benefits that we constantly are reaching with innovation and technology. But I think that when it comes to art, it's this weird argument where it's like, we can replace paint. And you're like, yeah, but I'm still going to use paint. I will say I feel informed about this.
Oh, yes,
if we're reading the story.
Other than what I was saying, I guess, earlier, I think I'm also informed about it.
Let's hop over to our second story. This is a complete change of pace.
It's a fun one.
This is so rad. This was actually brought to us by a YouTube commenter like Handros. If I'm mispronouncing that, I apologize sincerely. And you can send us a proper way to pronounce it, and I'll update that.
That's right. By the way, you guys out there, if you comment, if you throw us stuff in Discord, we'd love to feature it. So please do send us news stories like this.
Researchers observed an orangutan in Sumatra with a wound on his face. They believe it was an injury that was probably done by another orangutan during a fight. Days later, the orangutan was seen eating a plant that local people use to treat conditions including diabetes, dysentery, and malaria. And then it took the pulp of the plant and patched it on the wound. So then the orangutan actually chewed up a leaf after it noticed that flies were landing on the plant matter and used that to seal up the sort of impromptu medicine that it was putting together. Get this, Sandeep. 8 days later, researchers observed that the wound was completely healed. So anyhow, yeah, this orangutan is essentially making medicine in the wild, man.
I don't think we could interview the orangutan for the Not a Doctor segment.
Yeah, that's very true.
We couldn't do it. I think this orangutan has its MD, PhD. That's crazy, though.
Which is really unfortunate because I would love to interview this orangutan, but we just can't. The segment's called Not a Doctor. We couldn't do it.
Do it. And so there are animals that sort of do use plants as medicine, right?
Oh, yeah. Canadian snow geese swallow leaves to expel tapeworms, for example. Dusky-footed wood rats, which also, by the way, was my nickname back in high school, line their nests with aromatic plants to fumigate parasites. And also some chimpanzees rub insects near their wounds, possibly as a treatment.
I like the idea of wood rats being like, you know what's gross? These other things, we don't want them in our area. I guess this was like the first time they've seen this?
Yes.
I guess it wouldn't surprise me if this has happened a lot, but this seems to be like a big deal. And technically, it's in Western Indonesia, which that's Southeast Asia, right?
Yeah.
It's Indonesia.
Yeah,
it's still
you're right.
us.
Yeah, great. We are officially uncles now that we are trying to claim every possible achievement.
That's right. That's totally.
And put it under our umbrella.
If the Indian Ocean even touches it. Yeah, first wild animal seen using a medicinal plant. Okay, that's crazy. I think I'm going to rate the story as informed. I feel also,
great.
I get it. This is cool. I think this means Planet of the Apes is going to happen and that we should start being really nice to our ape friends because they're clearly going to take over. It's going to be either AI or apes.
I mean, I will say this. If and when the apes take over, the fact that there is available medicine is a big change.
Yeah, so maybe we'll finally get free healthcare.
Yeah, it's a huge
here
improvement.
in the U.S. All right, this one's pretty wild. So Eric Garcetti, former L.A. mayor, is now the ambassador to India, and he did this. Yeah, that's not even the story.
It's just great news. It's great to keep up with Eric.
It's great news. Yeah. And he did this video that kind of blew my mind. And my dad actually is like sending this video around. So we got this via WhatsApp basically. And my dad. And I was floored by it. So I want to play it for you guys. And then we'll chat about it real quick.
Hi, I'm Eric, the United States Ambassador to India. And today marks the one-year anniversary of my time as U.S. Ambassador to this great country. I never dreamed I'd have the honor and privilege of representing my country here in India. But what a year it's been. Arguably, over the last 76 years, maybe 2023 was the most productive year in our entire history, with lots of agreements, lots of paperwork, lots of Desi chai, and
nailed it.
Lots of accomplishments. So come with me, and let's walk through the year in review.
Let's go, Eric. Fix that frame, Eric.
Over the last 12 months, I visited over 22 states and union territories, from Vaga to Kanyakumari, from Mumbai to Kohima, where I picked up some amazing friends, gotten some incredible gifts.
There he is.
And
I mean, he's basically Dollar Shave Clubbing it right now.
It was a banner year for trade. We reduced tariffs and had nearly $200 billion of trade between the United States and India. That's a lot of almonds for a lot of mangoes.
There it is.
Oh, I gotta pay? No problem.
Wait, they have QR codes?
UPI Gazab hai. To promote peace and increase
Amazing.
interoperability, we had a record number of military exercises last year. Not those kind of military exercises, but good work, Marines. Now drop it, give me 10.
Yes, sir! Wow.
From the
You got that
seabed to the
response.
stars, the United States-India relationship is reaching new heights, including all the way to space, where this past year we made huge strides in NISAR, the first satellite that NASA and ISRO are making.
That's rad.
That will blast off later.
That's
this year.
genuinely so
So
rad.
that we'll enjoy a future in which he, sure, is crying now, but one day we'll be happy when we put him in space. And you know, we're doing our part right here, whether it's expanding climate resilience and climate solutions, through 10,000 new electric buses we're helping finance, or whether it's the largest solar manufacturing plant ever put in southern India with U.S. help. We're making sure we walk the green walk, not just the green talk. ठीक बोला?
बिल्कुल सही पकड़े सर तो लीजिए प्लांट लगाते हैं
Acha.
Oh my God, he dropped the
And then
acha.
there's our historic health partnership, where brilliant people in India and the United States are working together to come up with new vaccines for things like dengue, malaria, and whatever that was. Don't worry, felt like a bee sting.
That was like a Pierce Brosnan, you get hit in Goldeneye sound.
And with visas, we got the job done. For Poonam, for Superna, for Ravi, and so many others, we reduced wait time by 75%, increased the number of visas by 60%.
That's crazy.
And made Indians the #1 source of students from anywhere in the world, resulting in 1.4 million visas processed last year.
We're going to be talking about
Good
that
work,
for a
team.
long time.
This past year, I've fallen in love with cricket. And we're very proud to have announced this past year that cricket will
That's
become the
bonkers.
Olympic
That's rad.
sport in
That's
America
huge.
at the LA 28 game.
India might win a medal.
Hey, can you fix that window? Moving forward together. This wasn't a new peak.
That's a good
This is
line.
a new foundation for the work between Indians and Americans in the future. If we did this much in 1 year, I can't wait to see what's next.
What?
I'll do this one on my own.
Oh.
Nice.
You know what's between you and I and the
Oh,
next
he's
board?
right.
Nothing.
Fact checking.
And when it comes to the United
Holy
States
shit.
and India, there's nothing holding us back.
He's right.
Hope nobody's stolen my chole bhature.
Said he's right. There's nothing.
Amazing. I shook that man's hand one time.
Wow, how did it feel?
It felt very much like a hand, which is always good. You never know with
You never know.
politicians.
You never know.
know. Could be a
lot
little
of
bit of
things
a
fake
robot
about 'em.
claw. You
Yeah,
never
could've
know.
been- Could have been mostly Botox.
Could have been. Could have been a Cylon appendage. You never know.
Yeah, this is a wild video. Like I said, totally Dollar Shave Clubbed it. It highlights these significant accomplishments.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest. It made me feel excited. The NASA ISRO thing, the cricket in the Olympics, reduced visa waiting times. Like, that's huge. By those big percentages, reduced tariffs and $200 billion of trade between the U.S. and India. Like, that's good stuff, I think. I'm happy about
simple
that.
Concept of we are working together is
Yes.
we don't hear that enough.
We don't.
Even if it's happening, which oftentimes in the big news stories it's not. But even if it is happening, we don't hear about it really. Or it's like a horrible thing where you're just like, oh no, don't. You guys should not be working together. This is pretty rad. This is like a nice like core tenet of leadership to be like, here are things we're doing. They are good. People are feeling good about it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, of course, I'm sure they're not saying all the things that didn't go well. But look, if we can put every crying baby in space, I think
Yes.
that we've made progress. I'm going to go informed again. I think 3 out of 3 informed. I do wonder if some people think it's like propagandizing and glossing over some of the warts. But in general, I felt pretty good about it. How about you?
When you're talking about the benefits to the people, it's not like at the expense of other people's rights or freedoms. That's pretty rad. So I'm going to say informed.
Alrighty. I think it's time to bring out our guest here.
Let's do it.
We're going to move to our special interview segment called, Hey, let's talk to Not a Doctor. Val.
Hello.
Yes, so this is our interview segment where we search far and wide and find a South Asian out there who has a cool job or career that you guys might want to sit down for this. Not a doctor. And Voodoo Val, you are certainly that. Welcome to the pod. Val, can you tell us, you have an interesting ethnic makeup in your family. Can you tell us, where does the South Asian come in?
So I actually went and did my ancestry because I'm incredibly mixed.
Yes.
I have an Irish mother. She's Irish and Scandinavian and French and English. And then my
Rad.
father's family is from New Orleans, and Creole folk are from all over the place. I am like Filipino, I am Native American, I believe it said Nigerian and Egyptian. And then there was like a whole bunch of very interesting tidbits that I did not know about. I found out that I have an Asian grandmother.
Okay.
That I did not know about. So it's like little bits and pieces of all over the place.
Yeah.
You're amazing. okay, let's talk. So you are an artist, you're a graphic designer, amongst other things we learned in the pre-show. You are also a flautist.
Yes, indeed.
And an alto saxophonist. But when did you know that you wanted to have your career go into the arts, and how did you break the news to your parents?
Actually, my mom was very supportive of me going into doing art. When I was little, I was writing stories and drawing pictures. It was something that I was always doing. I think everything that I was doing was always secondary to doing art. It just took me a while to realize that it could be my job. And I remember there were 2 moments in my life that really were like, oh, this is okay for me to do. Like, I can pursue this and make this a thing. And the first thing was my mom got called into school when I was in the 3rd grade. The principal called her and was like, you need to come in. We need to have a conference immediately. Because I got in trouble in elementary school for drawing hot-bodied women.
Okay.
I did. I was drawing like these warrior women with like busts and swords and dragons and
So this is like heavy metal.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, Omar, you just give me like a little pitter patter.
Yes.
Oh
yes.
no.
You're speaking my language.
Yes. She was like, okay. She showed up, and I remember I was terrified, and they were like, this is what she's been drawing, and I had drawn like this chick that was in like the classic WoW armor style, like the heavy metal covers, basically.
Yes.
And my mom was like, so what's the problem here? And they were like, she can't draw breasts at school. This is the 3rd grade. And my mom said she can draw breasts whenever she wants as long as they're not mine. So I was like, oh, I'm allowed.
Amazing.
And the second moment, you mentioned heavy metal. She had a stack of heavy metal magazines because my mom was a big gamer growing up.
Yes.
I remember when she was pregnant with my brother, she pulled the lazy boy up to the computer so that we could play Diablo together.
Yes.
And all that. And there was a stack of heavy metal comics in the office, and I remember looking through them and looking at all the art. And I don't know that I was really supposed to be looking through them because I did sneak in there and look at them, and they definitely were not for kids. But I remember looking, and I got caught, and she was like, this is somebody's job. That's somebody's job that they did that. They got paid to do that. That's their job.
What?
And I was like, oh. And then I remember when I was 10, she forced all of my cousins and uncles and siblings to star in a play that I wrote called Revenge of the Ninja. And I was like,
Yes, of
this
course.
is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
This is what I'm going to do.
play.
I wish I still had that footage, but I tell you, but
Revenge of the
No, not
Ninja.
yeah, it was about a brother and sister. No, it was the first and only. But it was about a brother and sister who their father is assassinated by a ninja, and then they become the ultimate ninjas together and start their own ninja school to combat the evil ninjas. So they were like good ninjas, and that was like the whole thing. And I think my uncle played our father and the man who killed him.
Got it. And then did you have an M. Night appearance in your
Yeah.
Little
Me and my
Hitchcock
brother
silhouette.
were the brother and sister.
Yeah.
We were in it.
Amazing.
It was featuring, starring, and directed by, and written by. It was very prestigious.
And how old were you when this
9 or
happened?
10, I think.
Okay.
I think I was 9 or 10.
So you
Why
were
would-
always shepherded towards like an arts
Yeah.
career. This was
Yeah.
always like in full support, full-throated support from your mom. It's really cool. That's rare.
Goes.
So let me ask. So you are, or you have been an Adobe ambassador as
Yes.
well, right? Like you're super well versed in like graphic design, obviously, and the whole Adobe suite, and obviously all this stuff with AI is like coming in hot. And man, Adobe has been absolutely no slouch in immediately updating literally every single one of their applications with some version of AI.
I've been a part of the release dates for a lot of these. I've
Look
been,
at that.
I've done the demos and stuff, and so I have some information to share. Not like inside information, but like just my experience.
Yeah.
Doing all of those as an illustrator.
Where do you with the sort of the debate that's happening now and the strong feelings, and then the sort of segment that we played earlier about the Apple iPad smushing video, you are a graphic designer and you are someone that's been involved in these rollouts. Like, where do you stand? How are you feeling about it? What's your sort of,
Well,
what's your purview on this?
I think what I'll do is share just my personal experience and what it's been like for me throughout this sort of transformation that just really, it feels like it's happened all of a sudden. I will preface with, I don't want to make any blanket statements about how everybody should feel about it, but for me personally, like I'm like predominantly, first and foremost, I'm an illustrator and painter. And perhaps this can be true for a lot of people in the creative spaces. It was already easy to feel small here before there was the magic art button.
Right.
You know what I mean? It was already easy to feel that imposter syndrome or to wonder if what you were putting out in the world was worth putting out there. And then there's a lot of other ways that visual elements can be put into the world now. And so I think that the general unease surrounding certain points in this are very relatable, very understandable. And my particular approach to finding my way through all of this is to continue to create with authenticity and to continue to present my creative work in a way that I feel is genuine and authentic to me. Going from, you know, being like, I'm an illustrator, I'm a painter. Predominantly what I do for Adobe is I'm contracted with them and I teach Photoshop, I teach fresco, I teach graphic design in various applications. I showcase things in Adobe Express, and I have done many tutorials using Adobe Firefly and Photoshop's generative AI features. So things like text to image, using Firefly and using all of the features included there to generate work and stuff. And I have had to, because my personal stance on it is I don't think that generating an image with an AI, no matter what, whether you're using Firefly or Midjourney or any of these things, I don't think that's the end. I typically look at generative AI and AI work as a step. It's available. I don't think that it's going to go away. I think one of you was saying, I think it's here. It's not going to fall off the side of the earth all of a sudden. I think it's going to keep coming at us. And so I look at it like this is a tool. This is a piece of technology. And I don't think that leaving it as is after you hit that button is finished art. I think that there are many ways that AI can create elements for us to move forward. For example, the way that I have demonstrated AI art, because when Adobe asked me in the past to do tutorials, for the record too, by the way, I was not asked to show off AI. They didn't say, hey, you're an artist, make something with AI. They said, how would you use it? And I said, that's a great question. And they said, would you be willing to showcase an artistic process in which you use it in a way that you feel would be valuable to you as an illustrator and creative? And I said, yeah, I'll do that. And the way that I have used it, number one, is I have used Firefly to type in the description of a scene from a story that I've written so that I have something to generate something visually that I can add to a folder to keep track of visuals as I'm working through a story, to create scenes and things. I have used generative features within Photoshop to generate textures for myself that I can use, like paper textures and things like that, to supplement my work. But I never leave it as is. And I think that's, to me, is the way that a tool like that should be used.
So you're using it like a palette of paints almost.
Yes.
It sounds like 'cause, it's such a nuance in terms of what can be considered like raw material to then construct something else with versus something that feels actually really closer to finished and derived from an amalgam of other works that are uncredited. Like that's the sort of the challenge that we're trying to navigate here, right?
Yeah.
So you just
Also, like, on a practical level, too, Val, if you're on an assignment and you're making art for a character and then someone says, can you make this change and this change? And you have generated the entire image, a whole cloth, as one thing. It's an asset and not like a series of layers.
Yeah, it's an element. It's a piece. It's a cog in the machine. It's not.
well,
Like on
but
a
I guess
commercial like area, like that kind of throws off your entire workflow, right?
Yeah, I would say so.
until you can just copy and paste that note into a thing and into GPT or whatever, or Midjourney or whatever, and then have it regenerate the art.
And it's a little tricky in that I will also say the only AI app, because I want to be also clear about one thing, is that there are things like Midjourney and Firefly where you're generating stuff, but then there's also what at least we call generative features, like they're features within other apps and things that we've actually been using for a lot longer than the whole Midjourney and all that stuff. Things like content aware fill and certain things that, you know, like selecting a subject in Photoshop and having it pick up the hairs and whatever. Like, it's all coming from the same source. It's just things like Firefly and Midjourney and all that stuff do that in a different way. And I am by no means, I also want to specify, I'm not just because I use Photoshop and I teach Photoshop does not mean I'm not a doctor, guys. I'm not like,
you better not be.
I'm
we
not,
find out you're a doctor in the middle of this interview.
Yeah, I'm not like the official spokesperson for generative features and for Adobe's AI products. Totally. I just am giving my experience from having used the tools myself. But Firefly is the only one that I've used. I have not used Midjourney and all of the other ones that you can use because I found that I felt really uncomfortable using an app or testing an app even just for fun that had a data set that was scraped from other people's creative property. That didn't sit well with me at all. And Firefly's data set is Adobe stock. And all people who are participating and putting stuff into Adobe stock, they have the option to not be included in it. And they've also, you'll have to do your own research on this because I don't have the specifics for it and I don't want to pretend that I do, but Adobe has also announced actually paying people who participate in Adobe stock.
Right. Yeah, so finding ways to attribute that.
To contribute and to not just, hey, we're taking this. And so that spoke to me as a creative. And I was like, I would use that and it's part of my job. And I felt a lot more comfortable showing ways that it could be useful in a creative process because of those things rather than others where you have people who are like, okay, somebody literally typed my name into this one and now they're generating paintings in my style. And now there are artists out there who Google themselves and their actual work is not coming up at the top of the list for the AI
down or something.
Yeah,
wow,
like the AI generations are coming up before the paintings they actually did. I don't know what I would do if that happened to me. I think I would be devastated. So I think that accountability and transparency and that sort of thing is really important to me. And so this is how I've been going about it. I've been doing my best as an illustrator and painter to adapt and learn to coexist and move through all of this. But I think that there are some people who are generally just, nope, not for me, no thank you. And I can't fault them for that. You know what I mean? I can't.
As an artist, can I ask, because I feel like, and I think there's a really important distinction that you're making that I really dig, which is like using something to either facilitate your process or like drop in aspects of it. And there's a whole other thing, because art is a discipline ultimately. Like any craft you're doing is discipline. And like you're saying, like the art button you just like smash. It's not, you're not building up your skill set as an artist. You're just you're staying as good as clicking your mouse and doing a thing. Is there an element of your process that you're like, no matter how easy it ever becomes, or no matter what tools are present, I want to do this old school? Do you have a part of your visual art process that you're just like, oh no, like I'm doing this. You'll have to pull it out of my cold, dead hands before I let something else do it.
This is me. I'll clip the rose bushes manually.
Exactly.
I think definitely I am always starting from my blank canvas. I'm always building up my sketches and thumbnailing out all of my portraits and pieces and stuff. If I'm using generative features and incorporating generative AI into my process, first of all, my audience knows it when it's happening. It's not generally something, I think the only part of my process that maybe I'm not posting, I wouldn't say that I post it and I'm like, here's this, and I made this with AI. I don't add any part of like stuff that I've generated in Firefly into my work. I've generated stuff and sampled colors. Generate me a crystal that glows and then sample the colors from it and stuff. But typically when I'm incorporating a lot of that stuff, I'm doing a demo and I'm very clear about what I'm adding to my work. But I would say that working through my illustrations and getting to, for anyone who's not familiar with some of the stuff that I've done, like for example the characters illustrations for DesiQuest, blank canvas, just like if I was working on paper. And I would say that the only stuff that I maybe used during that process was just like color correcting. I did some color correction to make sure everything has the same warm tone, that sort of stuff, which I don't even know if you would really consider generative. And so I would say
it's tough to, that's interesting because that kind of a filter pass kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Normalizing your audio or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Aren't you doing that with these filter tools anyway? Like when you decide to like use Gaussian blur or whatever, you're not really
building it from scratch. Yeah.
You're not going in pixel by pixel and blurring and applying the actual formula that it takes to blend two things together. You're using a tool that allows you to do it much more quickly and efficiently, and replicate you might do in real life.
You just pointed it out too, is like you're using a tool. And I think if I'm not correct about this, correct me, but I believe all of those features and stuff, like the smart thinking features for Adobe apps specifically, is all like under the Adobe Sensei umbrella of like their smart features, their smart tools and generative tools and all that stuff. And there's a lot of them, like I said earlier, that we've been using for a really long time that are under that same umbrella. And I think it feels different now because we have what is essentially like a generate art button as far as some people are concerned. But there's a lot of stuff that fits under there, and you called it a tool, and I would agree. I think that's what it is it's a tool, but it's not the end. It's not the final product to me. Yeah.
I think I've gotten to hang out with you on a couple of your streams where you've been putting art together for DesiQuest. And I think like the thing that jumps out to me in our conversations is the why. Like when we're going through and you're picking a color, you are explaining like wherever you're putting that color from, you're like, we need this to be rust. We need this to be wood. We need this to pop. We have a lot of red. We have a lot of earth. I need this to be like a nice crystal blue to pop out and bring a lot of attention to the eyes. And I think the thing is, like you're saying, like with tools, there is like an alchemist behind it. Like all the stuff around you, there is like you get to, I think the joy for me of like your art and the discussion is the fact that like we get to look at a piece of art that you've made and be like, oh man, a lot of care and attention and thought and meditation went into this. And then we get to like talk about it, or your unconscious and subconscious is doing a bunch of stuff and it feeds ours. And it's not like a character generator in a video game where it's just randomize your avatar. Like, it is really nice to see, like, why you're using certain proportions, like, why you're dealing with certain shapes, why some things are maybe a little more sketched and cartoonish and some things are a little more photorealistic.
I'm curious would you ever want to use generative art for ideation?
I think, yeah, because to me, what my honest thoughts when I started hearing about it, before I started seeing some of the uglier sides of what people were doing with it then, was that like this would give me the opportunity to visualize immediately certain things. For example, what I said about writing a story, I wrote a story where a woman is living in like a reinforced cabin hiding out from zombies in the woods, and every time I'm writing about her working around in this space, I'm imagining this is
Revenge of the Ninja zombies?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
But
Revenge.
being able to generate, a bunch of different elements that are on that property and then photo bash them together and use that as a reference so that I open my folder and I'm like, oh yeah, the outdoor shower's over here. The secret back hatch, out of the cabin is over here's all this stuff. Like creating a story and stuff I think it's a powerful tool for that. That's what I can think of. Maybe other people can come up with other things.
I mean,
but
it's certainly,
I wouldn't release that.
That's the thing, is that before there's any of these conversations around the implications, or even that before I knew that there was scraping going on, I didn't even really know how it was doing it. Pure magic to me. This was super early on, right? I was like, wow, as someone I have some decent art. I can kind of tool on Pictionary pretty well, okay? I'm no slouch there. Okay. But I don't have Voodoo Val talent. And then I think about the people that are also like who, and I feel like this conversation comes up a lot, folks that in terms of accessibility and that kind of thing, and like people who like have never been able to use their hands or something like that, who can now like, wow, like the things that I have in my imagination can now be like actually realized by something. That can be like a powerful, impactful thing for folks who've wanted to tell stories and haven't, or not to mention the cost of having to hire an artist and all that stuff, which is obviously at the crux of this argument. But like for folks that have maybe wonderful stories to tell but can't afford them.
I suppose that I could understand if I think of it in the context of like suddenly having the ability to create something that I can't do. But I think that there's, how do I put this? I think that there's a transparency that needs to be projected. And I think that there's people out there who are up to no good with it, and they know that they are up to no good. And we're being gaslit as a creative community into thinking that it should be okay for them to do what they're doing. And I think that's wrong. For example, I think that if you're not an illustrator and you haven't put that time in. Like I'm 32 and I have spent 15 years of my life working on figuring out how to draw to get to the point where I am now. And then somebody generates an image, says that it's their art because they, I don't know, developed the prompt for it or whatever. And then they're selling that work and it's generated in somebody else's style. Someone else's 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years that they put into honing their craft to create the image that you are selling. Now, that seems a little funny. And I think that if it were in a different context, that somebody else might get it maybe for themselves. So it's those things that are really rubbing me the wrong way. And I think that the world is the world and human's gonna human, for lack of a better term. And it's not like we weren't going to see any bad things, but those are the parts of this that I reject. That it's not the vibe, it's not the move, and those are the things that really rub me the wrong way. Like if you have an accessibility thing going on, if you are able differently than other people, I think that your use case it's going to show in that. Like people go, oh, okay. But I think that when you're up to no good with it, people can also tell that you're doing that because you shouldn't be selling Voodoo Val art if you're not me. You shouldn't. So don't try to fool me into thinking it's gold when it's not. That sort of thing.
It's also interesting too. I know that like accessibility stuff within tech is like a very it's more case by case, I think, than just like making any general statements. But we also live in a world where like Beethoven, the composer and musician, was going deaf and wrote beautiful pieces of music that were expressive like from that experience. And what I mean to say is that Beethoven trained in music and composition and was able to share with us a piece of music that is still played in symphonies around the world and will continue to be played until the sun expands or the apes take over and say no Beethoven. But that kind of it's an interesting example, I think, of also like in answer to that, where it's, but what if I have this stuff? What if there's something that is preventing me from this? There is also a huge community and history of artists who work through that.
And yet, like, technology has also helped folks be able to express art where they otherwise couldn't. Like, you see those feel-good videos of people being able to create music, I hate to say it, on an iPad or something like that, because they can set the notes in a certain way that they can't replicate on an instrument, say, and you're still like, oh, cool, that's you expressing your musical talents, which is great. So but this is a different beast because it just feels like it's shortcutting. It's interesting because it's almost like you're talking, because you're expressing so much value, Omar, and both of you are expressing so much value in the work put in, right? And I think that's and the time it takes to build the craft and to build these capabilities, and then the fear that comes around that stuff getting undercut very quickly, right? By a new technology, and then not being attributed for that. So not only are you not hired to be an illustrator, but then the additional fear of, oh, and then you're also learning off of my shit to then make me someone that is obsolete as well. It's like this sort of double whammy that I think other technologies, that's less the case. Because people will argue, oh, once upon a time you had to cut film in order to actually physically cut film in order to edit it, and then these nonlinear editors came along and put a lot of folks out of jobs, right? The people who had to deal with physical film, and it used to take like an army of people to do that, and now those people are shit out of luck, basically. Or puppeteers, or once VFX came along, put a lot of people out of work and put them in a scary spot. People who have honed their craft for years and years, who then suddenly, now your craft is not really valued anymore in the same way that it used to be, because there's a technology that can produce it more cheaply and more. I don't know that I have a question in this. I'm just like trying to frame. I'm just honestly, I'm just trying to frame it all in my head and trying to understand what's my relationship going to be with this quote unquote tool.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit. It's got a little bit more power. It's a little bit more one-ringy than the advent of Final Cut Pro.
Yeah.
So it's.
I think my approach to it, as I said earlier, is just like trying to stay as authentic as possible in the work that I'm creating, and not giving up on the work that I want to create, no matter how easy it is for other people to achieve a similar goal now, and not losing hope in the value of me for being me in as
and
part of
it sounds
the
like
process.
you're also still learning the tools too. Like you're like, I think the there's like the famous story behind the guy who was a big time puppeteer. VFX came along, and he decided to immediately shift gears and go, okay, I'm going to be the VFX guy. And then I'm forgetting his name, but then he ended up being the VFX dude for Jurassic Park.
Yeah,
right? And, right. That's his sort of story, was that like he saw the writing on the wall that like a lot of puppeteers are going to be out of work. So I don't learn these tools. Then I'm not going to be able to provide for my family.
That
I'm not going to be able to
too,
produce
it's
my
like
art.
It's a thing too where like VFX really, specifically with Jurassic Park, because they did a stop motion T-Rex initially, and I know that he pushed against Steven Spielberg, a close friend of mine,
I think is what
Stevie, to do those computer generated mock-ups. But it is also that history with puppeteering that allowed Jurassic. There's also a lot of VFX has continued to be great, and technology has continued to quote unquote improve and innovate. But nothing comes close to those moments in Jurassic Park. Like the subsequent Jurassic Park movies aren't better because VFX has gotten cheaper or can do more. And a lot of that comes from the fact that there was so much time spent with the puppeteering. You could just adapt it over to a different technology canvas.
This leads me to sort of my final question for you, Val. I'm sorry, we've been way over time. Are you good in time?
I'm having a great time.
Do you think, I have this crazy theory, do you think like what we consider to be art is going to change as a result of AI technology? Do you think it's gonna shift how we, as human beings, we value as art?
I think there's a possibility. I think that's a great question. It's something that I've contemplated a lot of times, and I have a few different theories for that. Number one, I think it's entirely possible that we get so overwhelmed and oversaturated with mediocrity that we start to not even acknowledge or understand what is good and what isn't anymore, because I'm starting to see that too, of like some of these like generated AI things that come through. Sometimes there's people that can be like, that's not quite right, but then there's some people that it fools, and if so much of it is being pumped into the internet, pumped into the world, eventually it might become the norm, until all of those high quality masterpieces that we look for, that we try to create, might not even be recognized anymore.
Right.
I think also there's the idea that there was a time where people thought that digital art tools was not going to be real art.
Yeah,
and
there's
then
a lot around that, right? Like
I would say that I'm absolutely 100% an artist. And I think that is that point. Aside from like the fear of, oh, what's the worst that could happen? That's the thing that I try to focus on, is I think that I am an artist. And I think that the uproar on certain points of AI work is definitely loud. I don't think it's going anywhere, just like AI might not be going anywhere. And I think the pushback may also be there always. I think that there are plenty of opportunities for larger companies to take the cheap road and go with generative stuff for their projects and things. But I think that the world will definitely let them know what they think about that. And that's something that could convince a business maybe not to do that and to stick with human-made art.
The Apple commercial kind of.
Yeah.
Like
And
at some point, instead of made in the USA, it's made by humans.
yeah.
Whoa, that's wild.
And
Yeah,
there's like a
yeah.
little, I saw somewhere like somebody was saying like, here, you can use this if you want to tell people that your stuff is made by a human, and it was like a little heart, but it was like a thumbprint kind of. And I was like, this is really great. I like that.
Interesting.
This is like where my theory brain was going with some of this stuff was
Yeah.
a couple weird things. One was that that like live experiences and seeing people actually do the authentic artistic creation will start to become more valuable. Like like almost, I wonder if it brings back performance art in a way that like the advent of film and television crushed it for a little while. And not to say that like obviously we still do enjoy live theater and stuff like that, but I do wonder if that it becomes elevated even more. Just the live streaming thing, watching Val make it and having explanation is the art, really.
Yeah.
Even almost more so than the piece of art that comes out of it at the end. And I watched that authentic experience. I watched the authenticity happen, so I know it's authentic. Until that shit can be generated, and then I don't know, we're fucked. But do you know what I'm saying? Like I'm like, I wonder if that's one weird hope that I have is that it might bring back the live art form in a way. And then the second crazy thing is because we keep talking about attribution, and I'm like, how the fuck are we gonna really, like, what technology do we need to employ to make sure that that brushstroke that we pulled, in from this Adobe stock photo is actually like that whole situation, like
It's
doing
can
all
you
that
even?
stuff.
Can you?
And can you even? And then I'm like, I think the only thing that can even, and I hate to say it out loud, but I'm going to say it out loud,
Is a computer, maybe.
is a computer, but not just a computer. It's basically crypto technology.
Yeah. What is
It's
that
basically-
called?
One is coming
Yeah.
in to save art.
It's basically blockchain. I'm like, what else is going to be able
That
to
metadata.
vast amounts of data, categorize it, and keep track of it enough, and further replications of it to be able to go, hey, this artist deserves actually 1/4 of a penny because that they trained their thing on this, blah blah blah. I'm
so
like,
you're
does
saying
block-
you're
does
saying our Blade
blockchain
Runner
save
is
us from
gonna
AI?
be-
That's all I'm saying.
It's good. Blade Runner's gonna be, instead of it being like I'm chasing down cyborgs and stuff, it's gonna be like, hey, that's not a Van Gogh, and then there's like an action scene where
Yeah.
it's like chasing down the guy in the street, where it's just, no, you took that brushstroke from like a Degas based algorithm.
Yes.
Amazing.
I think if
exactly
I can
what
leave
it
it on a positive note, because I know
Yes.
you're trying to wrap this portion up, I think that as long as you stay with at least I do try, is that like when I say that I try to adapt and I try to move forward no matter what, I think I'm clinging to the passion of the experience
Yeah.
in everything, as I think that one thing that humans have never lost, it is an authentically human thing
Yeah.
that the AI doesn't do ever,
Yeah.
probably will never do, is the yearning for adventure.
Yeah.
It's never, all throughout history, that's always been something that's been like the human thing, telling stories and stories of heroes and villains and all that kind of stuff. And so I think that as long as you're telling an authentic human story and you're moving forward to tell those stories and to take other human people
Yeah.
on an adventure, that you're probably moving in the right direction. And I think that there's a lot of possible use cases for AI and generative things on in there, but I think like staying authentic and true to that for me is the way that I continue to push forward.
Yes.
As long as I'm telling a story from the heart,
You're moving
doing my
people,
thing.
moving their emotions.
You know what? Can I have the
Yeah,
audacity to ask you one last follow-up question?
I've got a can of audacity over here that you can have.
I'm gonna open
Yes.
a can of audacity.
Please.
I'm here to chew gum and have audacity, and I got
them all
both.
out of
The question I have for you is, do you have an artist that you would like to shout out that you feel hasn't gotten enough of a spotlight?
That's a great question. Holy crap.
So sorry, we're out of time. Thank you so much for being.
No, I am gonna give you guys an artist, and I think that I would have loved to prepare some folks and maybe share several with you. But I've got a buddy. His name is Corey Allen Hall.
Okay.
He is a fabulous young man. He is a queer graphic designer who you can find him on Instagram. And in the spirit of adventure, Corey Hall creates graphic design pieces that take his viewers on an adventure, a day in the life with him, or just a moment, an experience. Some of his work to me feels like a scent. Some of it feels sitting in the sunlight. And I think that they're incredibly authentic to him because I've met him in person now, and I was sitting in front of him like, oh, he's for real. He's not like fake on the internet. This is really him. And I think that he is authentically showing who he is in some really cool moments from his life in a way that feels like you're getting to know another human being. It's not digital art in the way that I'm doing illustrations. He is a graphic designer. Like I said, he's a photographer. He does photos and things. A little different than what I'm selling, but he's definitely somebody whose work I take a look at often. I think he's an authentic and fabulous person, and I hope that you enjoy his work.
So, Val, that's fantastic. Where, besides making your beautiful DesiQuest stuff, you're making the Wanderer's Guide and the Adventurer's Pack and a whole bunch of other stuff, and helping EffinFunny with the redesign and doing so many, because we like, you're a human and we like you as a human, and we like your art so much that we're like, any which way that we can work with you, we're trying to. But is there another place that people can find your stuff, buy your merch, get into your world? For our listeners, is it just voodooval.com? Is that what we're
Yeah, voodooval.com or voodoo.val on Instagram, voodoo_val on Twitter, X, whatever it's called now. I don't know. There's still tweets and retweets, right? I don't know.
Thanks
Thank
for
you for
coming on
joining
the
us
show.
today. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, what a lovely conversation with a lovely person on a hard topic. All right, now it's time for Auntie Watch 2020.
That's right. This is our segment where we track the 2024 U.S. presidential election to see just how close we are to achieving a presidential race between Democratic Auntie Kamala Harris and Republican Auntie Nikki Haley. Reminder.
That's our dream. It's our dream race, okay? This is our perspective.
This is what we want.
We want aunties.
Reminder,
Going head-to-head.
they are both at least part Indian, hence they are aunties. Also, Donald is facing 1 billion indictments, and Joe Biden is Joe Biden.
Okay. Yes.
So let's get some updates. How's Nikki Haley looking right now?
Yeah, okay. So first of all, I'm just going to say we were at 15% chance. That's where we're at right now.
Yes, that's where we were at earlier.
We're now going to deliver some news, and then we're going to talk about where we landed. Okay.
Yeah.
Nikki had good and bad. Had good and bad going on, all right? The bad is that on... Do you remember this guy, Vivek Ramaswamy?
Yes, yes.
This uncle you don't want to be trapped in an elevator with? Yeah, all right. So this guy, he had a podcast, and he had... This is... must have been the most delightful hangout ever. He had Ann Coulter on, and so the two of them going toe-to-toe. You walked in feeling maybe as smart as you are, and you left feeling like you can get a 1600 in the SATs. You left feeling brilliant. Okay. Anyway, point is... she said to him, okay, and she represents a lot of Republicans.
Yeah.
She said to Vivek Ramaswamy, I agree with many things that you said, probably more than most other candidates.
Okay, wow. Okay, great.
When you were running for president.
Amazing.
But I still would not have voted for you because you're an Indian. That's it. That's the reason. Dude, I gotta tell you, this is amazing to me. It's just saying the quiet part out loud. I gotta hand it to the Republicans. I do really have to hand it to them. They're just like, listen, you're too brown. There's too much brown sauce going on here. I don't want any chutney dipped in my fries. Okay, I'm just not gonna do it. And I think that's legit, man. That's legit. That's legit in the sense that a lot of people also will probably feel that way. Sorry, Jess doesn't look like me, doesn't talk like me. I'm not interested. So that's gonna ding for Nikki Haley. Now the good for her, for at least in terms of her becoming the nominee, is that Nikki Haley is actually now being considered as Trump's running mate. Which would put her in the same spot as Kamala, Auntie Kamala. So despite them fucking hating each other, Trump's campaign is actively considering Nikki Haley to be his running mate as his VP. Republicans close to both campaigns believe it's in Haley and Trump's mutual interest to reconcile, right? This is obviously purely political maneuvering here. If you think about the 2028 race for Nikki Haley and the potential for that to be Auntie versus Auntie, probably a politically savvy maneuver for her. Trump is actually scrambling right now to make up a fundraising disadvantage against President Biden and pay off all these obscene, crazy, and totally legit legal fees. And Haley, meanwhile, has deep ties to donors who are wary of Trump.
Interesting update for Nikki Haley. Okay, I've got some updates about Kamala Harris.
Oh, please hit me up.
Kamala Harris recently met with royalty. Did you hear about this? She actually got an exclusive invite by the Queen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, which Queen? I thought the Queen passed away. Wait.
No, Queen Bee, Beyonce. Beyonce made sure Vice President Kamala Harris would be at one of her concerts during her Renaissance World Tour. According to annual financial disclosure reports released for Harris and President Biden, they gifted the Vice President with tickets valued at $1,665.92. And Harris posted on social media a picture from the tour saying, "Thanks for a fun date night, Beyonce," naming her by name.
Wow, so she's getting the Bay vote. That's huge.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, let's do it. Let's update these metrics. We're at 15% chance to an Auntie off.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say that the Haley thing is a wash, but they're being good and bad. But maybe there's a couple points to be had for Baywatch there. for the
I think definitely pushes us up quite a few points.
Really? Where are you going?
Yeah. So I want to say we were at 15 before.
15, yeah.
I want to say Baywatch brings us up to 20, but then
20?
calculating calculating the Ann Coulter interview.
Yeah, that's
balanced out. I want to say maybe we're at 18. 17 or 18.
I like 18. That's where I wanted to land too. I like 18. I love it. And remember, now Ann Coulter wouldn't vote for Vivek Ramaswamy because he's Indian. Now Nikki's only, I think, half Indian or partial. So maybe she'll only not vote for half of her. So
maybe Ann Coulter doesn't know because she sees the name Nikki Haley and just breezes past
and
it and goes,
fine.
I don't know,
yeah,
Girl
exactly.
Scout? I don't know.
I'm with you. Okay.
Hard to tell.
All right.
Okay, 18%. There it is. Your Auntie versus
We're
Auntie
locking
Watch, a 2024 update.
A segment that I think only we care about. All right, here we go.
Let's get to a segment that everyone cares about. Are you ready for our game?
Yeah, I'm ready. Let's go.
It's called
Let's
the ABCD game, Care or Crush. All right, folks, inspired by the Apple commercial that we talked about earlier and the controversy that brought, we are playing the game Care or Crush. Sandeep and I will take turns presenting various items from our homes, and the other will have to decide, do you care about this, or would you crush it with Apple's dystopian machine?
Okay. All right, I like it. Let's do it. You ready?
I am very ready.
Oh, wait, what happens? The loser, okay, so each time Omar and I guess correctly, we earn a point. In the event of a tie, we're going to, we actually, Delvin's not here, so we're just going to keep going. I have a bunch of random objects. I can keep going until we get a winner. And then the loser is going to have to improvise based on chat suggestion. What are we improvising? I don't even know. The winner, sorry, I'm lost here. And we're going to do the loser. Okay, it says blank. So we have to improvise what the loser has to do.
Yeah. So this, I think maybe it's an apology announcement for destroying the thing.
You have to be Tim Apple.
You have to be Tim Apple.
You have to do an apology announcement. Okay, great.
For destroying that one item. Okay.
For one of your items, yeah.
Yeah.
Great. To the destroying one of the other person's items that they treasure.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
That's,
I love it. Great. We did it.
All right.
Okay. Here we go.
Okay. You want to go first?
Ready? You start. Yeah, please.
Okay. I'll start.
Yeah.
Or you want to start? Okay, I'll start. So I pulled a couple things out of my 2009 Kia Spectra. Okay. So I've got 3 items here, Sandeep. You're going to tell me care or crush. Are you ready for the first item?
Yeah, you're just going to do one, and then I'm going to do one.
Yeah, I'm doing one, and then I'm going to trade it back to you. But I just want to let you know, these are all things I pulled out of my 2009 Kia Spectra.
Fantastic.
Starting with...
What if you brought out your actual 2009 Kia Spectra? Okay, all right.
That would be something else. This broom.
Okay, a broom. All right. The question is, this is a broom. Looks like just a sort of old-fashioned kind of bristle broom here for our listeners. It doesn't look particularly special to me, but I'm wondering, why the fuck would you have this broom? in your car. In what utilitarian way would you be like? Would you be like, man, I need to sweep these mats off? Are you just always eating Cheetos and mukwas and other crumbly things that fall in your car, and you just gotta do?
And I use specifically this Asian broom to sweep up my car with all those crumbs.
I could see that because those are strong bristles, and if you are as snacky as my dad is in the car, that this makes a lot of sense. That guy, I think he mostly misses his mouth when he's eating food. So
there are two types of Desis: the Desi that never eats in the car, and the Desi that exclusively eats in the car.
Yeah,
those are the two.
And
types.
my dad is definitely the latter.
Yeah.
Okay, here's the thing I'm going to throw out there. I think you might be a Quidditch player. Hey friends, because our interview with Val was so engaging and timely, we didn't want to cut out any of it. So instead, we cut out the rest of this silly game. But don't worry, the full game is up on EffinFunny's Patreon, and we made it free for everyone, not just the subscribers. So head on over there after the episode and check it out. But for now, back to the show. That moves us right into our final segment of the show, Desi of the Week.
Our Desi of the Week is the director of the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy. It's Arati Prabhakar.
That's right. Otherwise known as the president's chief science and technology advisor, and the woman who introduced Biden to ChatGPT. That is legit.
Now, this is rad. We were talking about technology, logistics, and stuff earlier today in policy. Born in India and raised in Texas, Prabhakar has a PhD in applied physics from Caltech and previously ran 2 U.S. agencies, the National Institute of Standards and Technology and the Department of Defense's Advanced Research Projects Agency. She also spent 15 years in Silicon Valley as a venture capitalist. This is wild.
Yes, she assumed her current job in October 2022, just in time to have AI dominate the agenda, and she's been educating top officials about AI, eventually helping Biden push out an executive order which mandates safety standards, boosts innovations, promotes AI in government and education, and even tries to mitigate job losses.
That is so rad. Prabhakar is also the first person of color and the first woman to be appointed director of the office. This is absolutely unbelievable. Congratulations for being our Desi of the Week.
That's right. And just a quick shout out to our 11th runner-up for Desi of the Week, and that's Sahith Theegala, who is ranked 12th in the world in the PGA Tour. 26-year-old from Orange, California. He's only been pro for 4 years. He was named College Player of the Year. We have our own tiger, is all I'm saying. And there's actually tigers in India, so his name is, he should be named Tiger. Yeah, pretty excited about a golfing Indian guy. That's cool.
This is great. We're following all the sports of this season of ABCD. And folks, that is our show as always. Our big ask is that you find one person in your life that you care about or that you despise that you think would love this show and share it with them. Just tell them about it.
And we want to feature you in the show. Send us a question that you want some culturally specific advice, and we'll answer it. We'll answer it poorly, but we're going to answer it on the show. So shoot us a question at abcdpodcastshow@gmail.com.
Hell yes. And now it is time to shout out our Patreons and listeners. Are you ready for this?
Let's do it. What's the genre we're doing it in? We're doing it in a cappella?
It's hard to beat a cappella. I loved all the suggestions, but we got to do a cappella. All right, here we go. Boom,
we're right here, Kiji. No, you're down here. I'm up here. Let's find it. Joshua Ryan, Tal BM, Benjamin Lowe, Miranda Hollinger, Michael L, Raylan Fox,
Celine B, Nervous Rex, Sarah H, Varun.
Moldy Ford, Philip Dazan, Kathleen Schlegel, Ducati. It's time for the rap break. Brandon Pace, Monroe Maxwell. Let's go, let's go.
Jeremy Schwartz, 8-Bit D, Chris Sims, Dan Wally, Jeremy O'Brien, Brendan Bradley, Bird Raylan, time for the gods.
With the gods involved, Mark Tucker, Hannah Lehman, James Gaffney, Scribbles and Flapjacks, and Vader.
You know how they always go low at the end?
Absolutely. If you're rockapella from Carmen Diego,
yes.
All right. This show is produced and edited by Anand Shah and Kaylin Mahoney. The show's technical director and sound designer is Delvin Neville. Not for this episode. The show's executive producers are Sandeep Parikh and Anand Shah. And this has been an EffinFunny production.
On behalf of next week's host, Sandeep Parikh, I have been this week's host, Omar Najam. May your chakras be aligned and smothered in chutney.